Fort Worth and North Texas on the Guadalupe Radio Network. Catholic radio for your soul. Heard also at grnonline.com and on your smartphone.
Welcome to The Quest from the studios of the Guadalupe Radio Network. Join us as we journey together on this pilgrimage of faith. And now your host, Sarah Soto.
Hey y'all, it's good to be with you on this beautiful South Texas afternoon. You know, I usually give you an update on how intolerable the weather is in our neck of the woods, but it's actually phenomenal. It's definitely warm enough to hit the beach, but it is so beautiful here in South Texas, and for that I am so grateful. As you all know, I generally have some pretty amazing guests on the show. If you've been listening for the last couple of years, you certainly know that. And today, I'm really honored and excited to have a priest here in my own diocese that I really have admired for a long time on the show. And as I was, before I introduce him, as I was looking through his bio so that I could kind of prepare and make some notes, I was like, we should just do a whole show on this guy's life. I just want to listen to stories about this priest's life and the many things that he's done in his service of the Lord. It's really quite remarkable. But I'm very excited, and I'm honored to have Father James Farfaglia on the show. Welcome to the show, Father James. And so I think, let's see, hold on just a second. Father Farfaglia, he's got this incredible story. His life is one that's very impressive, and I found myself attending daily masses at the parish he was previously at for a while. And what I admired so much about the way he served God's people and in the way that he preached was he had this incredible way of breaking down these big spiritual kind of mountainous concepts to make them totally palatable to the everyday average person. Now, the area that we're in is predominantly Hispanic, and a lot of Spanish-speaking people were attending the parish that he served at when I first encountered him, and it was just amazing. It was amazing to see the impact that he had. And so I'll give you a little background on him. Father James Farfaglia was born and grew up in Connecticut. He was among the first group of students in New Hampshire's Magdalen College, which I've heard so many amazing things about. During his sophomore year, he experienced a profound calling, which led him to the Catholic priesthood. In 1978, he joined the Legionaries of Christ. He participated in the foundation and development of seminaries, schools, and in the Regnum Christi lay movement in Spain, Mexico, and Canada, and throughout different parts of the U.S. In 1999, he met Bishop Edmund Carmody, a big fan of Bishop Carmody. If you have ever encountered him, you probably feel the same way, who was at the time the Bishop of Tyler, Texas. Bishop Carmody asked Father to found and build a new parish in Lufkin, Texas, St. Andrew the Apostle Catholic Church. Then Father followed Bishop Carmody to South Texas, where he founded St. Helena of the True Cross of Jesus Catholic Church here in Corpus Christi, Texas. So the current Bishop of Corpus Christi, Bishop Michael Mulvey, needed a bilingual priest, and asked Father to leave St. Helena's to become pastor of Our Lady of Guadalupe, also here in Corpus Christi. And after 10 years of remarkable service there, the bishop asked Father to go to St. Francis de Paula, that's in San Diego, Texas. So Father's first book, Man to Man, A Real Priest, speaks to real men about marriage, sexuality, and family life, became a very popular resource for men who want to live a faithful and joy-filled marriage. With a deep desire to help lay Catholics live a deeper spiritual life, he published a second book, which is called Get Serious, a survival guide for serious Catholics. Now, both of those books you can find on Amazon, which you are certainly going to want to after hearing today's show. So Father's been actively involved in the pro-life movement. He also founded Westside Helping Hand, an after-school holistic youth formation program that empowers at-risk children and young people to overcome the challenges created by poverty and broken homes. And as I said, he's currently at the pastor of St. Francis de Paula in San Diego, Texas. Welcome to the show, Father.
Thank you. Hello, Sarah. Good to see you.
It's great to see you, and I'm very excited. I'm honored to have you on, and I know you service of the Lord. It takes, it's not it's not you're just sitting around twiddling your thumbs. And so, especially as over a parish, as a pastor of a parish, I'm grateful for your time today. And we agreed when we first discussed you coming on the show that we would talk about something that is. I don't think it's overlooked, but I don't often hear from the pulpit about the importance of the layperson's well-developed spiritual life. And I hope to hear from you and your perspective in your many years of formation and experience as a pastor and as a religious. What do you think are why do you think there is such a lack of spiritual life in so many lay people's day to day?
Honestly, I don't know, because prayer is such a gift. So just to keep it positive, we have to remember that many years ago, the Second Vatican Council reminded the laity, which is the largest group in the Catholic Church, that everybody is called to holiness. And so the only way that we're going to grow in holiness is through a serious spiritual life. And of course, that is a great gift from God. And so the question then is, well, what does that spiritual life look like?
Right.
We have something in common, which is our Sunday Mass. Everybody goes to Mass on Sunday, or at least we should. And that's the Lord's Day. And that's where the whole community comes together. Now the question is, what does an individual's prayer life look like from, Sunday afternoon until the next Mass on Sunday?
Right.
So I've, what I'm going to suggest here is simply what the church suggests. And then everybody, they have their favorite devotions and ways of praying is something very personal. The point is to pray. Now, we can get into, it's real simple. What does that prayer life look like? What the church suggests. The first thing is the Liturgy of the Hours, which has become very popular. And that's something that priests and religious, both men and women, pray. Some pray it alone, some pray it in community, some chant it. It depends on what's going on in each particular community. But then this is open to the laity to participate in as well. And many lay people have found in the Liturgy of the Hours a great way of growing in the spiritual life and to pray because it's structured. So you
Right.
have your morning prayer. Then, of course, there are other moments throughout the day that are, but the main thing for the lay people, if you could just simply do the morning prayer, the evening prayer, and the night prayer every day with the Liturgy of the Hours, and then we'll stick right with that for now. So, and there's different formats. There's you can buy the actual 3-volume set and do the whole thing, or you could there's apps for your phone and with audio, so that I know people we're all very busy. We live in a very busy world. So even as you're going to work, coming back from work, there's ways of praying audio wise. People might be out walking. They could do a morning walk, an afternoon walk, an evening walk. You could pray with audio with headphones on, or pods in your ear, whatever. And then the point is to pray. And then there's some new publications, like there's the Magnificat, which is a shorter version of the Liturgy of the Hours. Then now Bishop Barron's Word on Fire has come out with a monthly magazine now, or a booklet that's very affordable for morning prayer, evening prayer, and night prayer. And there's all sorts of things on YouTube now. Particularly, there's one group that's chanting morning prayer, evening prayer, and night prayer, which is very attractive. It's very well done. So there's now with the modern means that we have at our disposal, there's many ways out there that can help us to grow in the spiritual life. Now, aside from the Liturgy of the Hours, then of course everybody knows about the Rosary, and a lot of
Right.
people pray the Rosary. And so we can do our Liturgy of the Hours, do our Rosary at a particular moment. Could be a family Rosary in the evening. And then a lot of people, have found a lot of solace in daily Mass, or maybe Mass throughout the week, in between the Sundays whenever possible. And then also the thing about adoration of meditation, of more of a contemplative, silent type of a prayer. And if it's impossible to get to the church to do adoration, then meditation or contemplation, whether it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes, a half hour a day, is very conducive to the spiritual life. So the structure would be liturgy of the hours, morning, evening, and night prayer. Somewhere we have our rosary, our daily mass, and our meditation. And that meditation could be 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or a half hour, depending on what's going on. Then sacramentally, of course, is the practice of frequent confession. So for lay people, what I recommend is monthly on a regular basis. Just calendar it, put it in the calendar, make sure that we don't leave it aside, and then or when necessary, in order to remain in the life of grace and to grow in sanctifying grace. So that's the general structure. And when we have a moment, then we can talk about, the difficulties that are involved in all of this.
Yeah, as I'm listening, I'm like, gosh, there's so many difficulties. I'm like, gosh, that sounds so amazing, and I sure would love to do that. And my life looked a lot more like that before I became a wife and a mother, but it's kind of piecemeal here and there now. But I'm talking with Father James Farfaglia on the show today. He's a priest in the Diocese of Corpus Christi, and I really admire him. And today we're talking about the importance of the layperson's spiritual life. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. We'll be back after a very short break. We're here with Father James Farfaglia.
Hi, Julie Carrick here. I am delighted to be the host of We Sing Our Faith. This weekly program shares beautiful Catholic music and deep insights of many Catholic teachings. Join me on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock Central Time for We Sing Our Faith here on the Guadalupe Radio Network. Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock Central Time. We Sing Our Faith.
Hey, Keith Downey here, host of Morning Joy, where truth matters. With the election and the political change that's in the air right now, family gatherings this holiday season might get a little more heated than usual. This week on Morning Joy, Debbie and Adam have already our conversations. On the next Morning Joy, comedian Steve Simone will help us bring some levity and joy into it as well. Listen right here weekday mornings at 6 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Eastern, or subscribe to Morning Joy wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome back to The Quest, an extraordinary journey where every step brings us closer to discovering God's love for us. Want to join the conversation? Give us a call at 877-757-9424.
Hey y'all, welcome back to The Quest. I'm here with you every Monday and Thursday. I'm your host, Sarah Soto. I'm a Catholic wife, mom, and speaker. For more information or to contact us, you can always shoot us a message at thequest@grnonline.com. Folks, we're talking about the importance of the layperson's spiritual life today. So if you're up for it, if you feel like sharing, what do you do to maintain your prayer life? What are your tips, tricks, and secrets? How do you ensure that you get that most necessary prayer in throughout your day? Do you wake up extra early? Do you stay up a little later? Give us a call and share it. 877-757-9424. That's 877-757-9424. Let us know how you maintain your spiritual life, your prayer life. 877-757-9424. Here today with Father James Farfaglia, sharing the importance of prayer life, of a spiritual life for the layperson. He mentioned kind of the meat and potatoes of what we should be doing, prayerfully and sacramentally in our lives. And now I think we're going to get into some of the more nuts and bolts of how to some of the difficulties that we may face as lay people in the various states of life, perhaps. Father James.
Yes.
Sorry. So you were saying that there are you acknowledge there are some difficulties that we
Absolutely.
run into as lay people.
Yeah. For example, if you were to look at the Catechism of the Catholic Church, in the fourth part is the whole fourth part is dedicated to prayer.
Right.
And at the very beginning of the fourth part, it's like a subtitle, The Battle of Prayer. And the church recognizes then that prayer is a battle, and simply because we're not angels. So
Right.
we're body and soul. And there's all sorts of things that go on that are part of the difficulty. So let's talk about some basic stuff. First of all, first of all, as you mentioned, um, as far as the laity are concerned, the prayer life of a single person and the prayer life of a married person could be different, and usually is,
Right.
particularly in the first stages of married life. Getting organized, buying a house, work, children that are coming along. So obviously, you're going to have to adjust to the circumstances. But then behind all of that is, order. That's the main thing.
Right.
See, for example, like in a monastery, well, there's a schedule.
Right.
Okay. And so all the members of the monastery follow a schedule. Well, I recommend that in home life there be a schedule as well. Now, maybe it can't be followed to the T because, a kid, falls off the swing, or somebody gets sick, or there's this, or there's all, but the things that aren't normal shouldn't become normal. And that's the first thing for a serious prayer life and family life, is going to be to get organized. And what helps is if mom and dad are on the same sheet of music, which isn't always the case,
Right.
but in terms of serious Catholic families, it usually is the case. So the thing to do there is to develop a prayer life for the entire family.
Yeah.
That becomes even easier when families are homeschooling. Not that I'm saying
Right.
that's the only way to go, but that becomes much easier
Yeah. Yes.
because you can make a schedule for the whole family.
Yeah,
You know,
let's take this call real quick from Carl from Dallas. We're reaching out and wondering what people do to maintain their prayer lives, or if they have any questions for Father Farfaglia. Carl, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Hey, sure. Thanks for calling.
Just to share my own personal experience, one of the things I've done since college, which was many years ago, is to pray the morning office. And I just have that. I've had the same one, which is, I probably need to buy a new one pretty soon. But, because it was like printed in 1976 or something. But
Oh wow.
it doesn't take that long, but I go through the invitatory, and then I go through, the Psalms, the reading, and then if there's any special, if there's a feast day or memorial or anything.
Yeah.
And it kind of keeps me, and I do that every morning. And even if I'm like really pressed for time, I may not take a lot of time in between the prayers or really kind of like meditate on it, but if I just have to get through it, I can get through it in 10, 12 minutes.
Yeah.
And it just, I just, at this point, I don't even feel right unless I do that every morning.
Yeah.
And it just kind of also keeps me, it reminds me of the various saints, because it'll be in there, or if there's a feast day, or if there's holy angels or something. And it also, so not only lifting up my day, but also, there's prayers of forgiveness for wrongdoing. There's prayers of,
That's right.
there's prayers of celebration. There's prayers to remind that God's in charge.
Yeah.
And there's prayers of, where I can remember praying with the church, the wonderful things that have happened,
Yeah.
in the life of the church.
Yeah, no, that's really beautiful. And for those that aren't familiar with the morning office, You don't have to have an old book, a very old book. There, it's accessible online, and there's so many apps that have it now. But no, that's great insight. That's very helpful. And I think my favorite part is that you shared that you don't feel right unless you pray the morning office. I think your guardian angel's doing a fist bump if they do that. Thanks for sharing, Carl. We appreciate it. So, Father, you were saying that it can look really, you were saying the importance of a family schedule. And obviously that's easier if you are homeschooling, right? Like my husband, for example, works from home and I stay at home with our son. So obviously we can absolutely make and set aside time, right, in the morning and in the evening together as a family to pray, to have meals together even. And so not everybody has that advantage. Sometimes people are two ships, right, passing in the night. But yes, it's not always easy, but a schedule is probably essential, I think, to maintaining a prayer life.
Right. I mean, as in terms of even for the lay single person to have a schedule, and sometimes, right, that's a whole nother program about a whole nother hour that we can to talk about just scheduling.
Right.
So practical things like it may be important to get up a little earlier, go to bed a little earlier so that you can get up a little earlier. Those quiet times in the morning are really good. But the thing is maybe for most of your listeners, of the people, the moms and dads that are in the trenches of family life, this is not necessarily easy, but it is possible. So even going to work, there are things that we can do in the car, and that's okay. There's apps for the liturgy of the hours. There's even apps for rosary. There's all sorts of things now that modern technology helps us to do our prayer life. Sure, would it be nice to do it somewhere else or in the church or out in the woods or whatever? Sure, but the point is to pray, and then there's going to be a certain time in family life when obviously a lot of sacrifices involved in raising children and maintaining a successful family. But
Right, right.
but of course the prayer life then is the first step is going to be the order, and to have some to be organized. And sometimes even as with a young family, sometimes, and I remember my parents did the same thing as our family was growing. Well, they couldn't go to church together. That was a short period of time, so my dad would stay home and watch the infants while my mother took the rest of us to church, and then my dad would go. So it's kind of a split shift. Doesn't mean that one has to miss mass,
Right,
right?
right.
Or even now with the availability of Saturday evening masses, or even a lot of parishes have Sunday evening masses, it makes it easier. So it all depends on what's going on in the family. And
Right.
so when the family then is young and there are children being born, then even then we could, sit down and create a schedule, realistically. Maybe all we do is a rosary, or maybe we just do a decade, or maybe
Right.
it's just maybe, as you're praying with an infant in your arms. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And
Yeah,
then
sorry, go ahead.
later on the prayer life could become something that you want. But of course God is blessing all of that in a very
Right.
powerful way if you're giving yourself to your family, to your children. That's very powerful. But the point is that we can all pray.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. We can all pray, and I'm just thinking right now of all of I'm thinking of the many families that I know who, parents are often out the door before children even wake up, and then children attend school for, with extracurriculars. We're talking like 8-9 hours a day, and then they're getting taken home by friends or maybe picked up by a parent, and they're eating fast food in the car on the way home, and
Yeah, well,
doing two
that's,
hours
you
of
see,
homework, and then it's
right.
where's the time?
But that,
Like,
right, but that's the other thing too that's very important in our American society. I personally believe that there's too many activities going on in terms of like all this traveling for sports and this thing and that thing. I personally, I know it was a different world, but I grew up when my mother was home and we played in the neighborhood. So I didn't participate in organized sports at all. We played baseball in the neighborhood. I was growing up in Connecticut. We were, skating and sledding. We had a lot of activity, riding our bikes. My desire would be that we return to that basic kind of life and let
Yeah.
children just be children rather than running around from one organized sporting event to another. That all of that really interrupts family life.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I didn't play sports, but my siblings, my younger siblings do, and the forget the financial investment of these select teams and traveling and things like that. But
Right.
people are missing mass to attend these out of town tournaments on a regular
Absolutely.
basis, and
Yeah, I
so
know.
that should be your
Absolutely.
first indication that it needs to
Something
become
something is well then God isn't a priority, and we've been
right.
talking about this theme the last couple of Sundays in the readings for Sunday Mass.
Mm,
That God has to be a priority, and if God is a priority, then prayer life is going to follow. Maybe not naturally, but we're going to have a more of a desire to pray if God is first. If we get distracted with everything else, even when we talk about sports, and I was mentioning this on Sunday and the Sunday before, lots of times for people, professional sports is like a religious experience.
oh yeah,
That becomes like a new religion. And there's nothing
yeah.
wrong with following a professional team, but is that going to get me to heaven? And the answer, of course, is no.
Of course not. I remember that. I won't say him by name, but my childhood pastor here in Corpus Christi used the majority of a homily to encourage people not to skip mass or wear Cowboys jerseys to mass. People were really angry. People were really angry because, I mean, as you know, you're here in South Texas. A lot of people do wear Cowboys jerseys to mass, and it's like this is $95. This is my nice wear. It's like it's a different world down here. But yeah, I've seen people. I mean, I know people that are big sports fans that always go to Sunday mass, like without fail. But obviously, there are. Well, we woke up a little late, and the Cowboys game's on in the afternoon, so we can't make mass. And it's heartbreaking for me. But like you said. If you're not prioritizing the Lord, then your priorities are out of whack. For those of
Yeah.
you that are just tuning in, we're talking with Father James Farfaglia, who is with the Diocese of Corpus Christi. He's a pastor and an author, and I just want to plug that I've got copies of both of his books, Man to Man and Get Serious, a survival guide for serious Catholics. You can find those on Amazon. His last name, Farfaglia, is Farfaglia. We'll be back after a very, very short break here with Father James Farfaglia talking about the importance of the layperson's prayer life. We'll be right back.
This is Life News Radio. I'm Jim Anderson. Bobby Schindler of the Terry Schiavo Network is telling how Catholics are opposing a problem even at some Catholic medical facilities. Sister Deirdre Barnes is not only a consecrated religious sister, but a retired Army colonel and family practice doctor and surgeon. She's the driving force behind the documentary No Mercy, The Catholic Culture of Death. Details on the premiere this weekend near St. Louis are at lifenews.com. Pro-life South Dakota Republican John Thune will be the next Senate Majority Leader, replacing abortion-friendly Democrat New York Senator Chuck Schumer. And President Trump is picking pro-life Representative Matt Gaetz to head the Department of Justice. Some say what amounts to a Capitol Hill soap opera may hurt his confirmation. This is Life News Radio. News at Life News Radio should make you think, and often it should make you think about calling your elected officials in Washington, D.C. So remember this phone number, 202-224-3121. Let your senators, your representatives, hear from you, 202-224-3121. Recent pressure to pass assisted suicide legislation in the UK may be backfiring. UK Right to Life says, with MPs given barely 2 weeks to scrutinize this complex and wide-ranging legislation, pro-life opposition is coming together quickly. In a conscience rights battle, Healthcare insurance giant Blue Cross denied 250 religious requests for exemption from COVID vaccines created with aborted fetal cells. A federal jury found violation of federal and state law and has awarded a Michigan Catholic woman $12 million. For pro-life headlines delivered to your email address daily, sign up at lifenews.com. This has been Life News Radio.
You're listening to The Quest, a pilgrimage of faith. Have a question or something to share? Call the show live at 877-757-9424.
Hey y'all, welcome back. It's such a great joy to be here with you all. If you're just tuning in, I'm your Monday, Thursday host, Sarah Soto, Catholic wife, mom, and speaker. You guys can always shoot us a message at thequest@grnonline.com if you have any questions, comments, suggestions. We're with you Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern here on The Quest. You can always download our Guadalupe Radio Network app, or you can listen and stream from grnonline.com, from our YouTube page, or Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We are everywhere you could possibly intake this information, which I'm so glad and so thankful for. You can always see the wide variety of facial expressions that I make now that we're on streaming video too, on YouTube and Facebook. Today we're here with Father James Farfaglia. He's a pastor here in the Diocese of Corpus Christi at St. Francis de Paula, and he is talking all about the importance of the layperson's spiritual life. We're talking, there's obviously different states that a layperson can be living in, right? Married, single, discerning too, right? Seriously discerning, and all the different ways that we have to prioritize prayer. And I was just thinking, Father Farfaglia, when you were talking about how you grew up playing outside, like, no like sort of organized sports where you were gone, 5 nights a week and then all weekend long playing baseball for what end goal, I don't know. And as I was listening to you share that, I was longing for, I think my generation is the tail end of that. I think we were maybe the last ones. I won't age myself too much here on the show, but I was just telling, I don't know who it was. I was just talking to someone the other day, and I went outside alone to meet with friends and play. I was 5 years old. I mean, you couldn't pay me $1 million to send my son outside alone at 5 years old. He's 2 now, but I mean, yeah, not in a million years would I do that. And nobody thought anything of it. I was just, all right, see you later. I'll be back. At 5, this 5-year-old little girl in a dress with a Barbie. Bye, Mom. Just hanging around. And we knew everybody, and it was safe. And I know young people get so tired of us older folk going on and on and on about how great the old days were. But I mean, you really did. You got all this physical activity. You got lots of sunshine. I mean, it was just life was better back then. And like you said, I do long for a return to that. And I've seen some Catholic communities kind of coming up and moving nearby each other, and some even making compounds, where they're all Catholic families together. And I think that's the dream. I'd love to have a ton of people that I trust that are faithful Catholics living around, every corner from me. But we're talking about the importance of the layperson's prayer life, and how there's been a real lack of the prioritization of not just prayer, but of worshiping God. And that's something that's absolutely flipped on its head more recently. Well, in our lifetime, it used to be automatic that people went to Mass, that people worshiped God, and that people honored the Lord's Day. And it seems to be so very flipped on its head nowadays. And I'll say, I teach 2 confirmation classes right here in our diocese at 2 different parishes. And it's a mixed bag, right? About half my kids are homeschooled or private schooled. And so you kind of ask, who prays the rosary with their family? You get a hand or 2 raised, and one of them's looking at me like I got 2 heads. They've never prayed a rosary in their life. And so for a family that doesn't pray together at all, they may bless their food before they eat, but they don't pray together at all. They go to Mass, and that's the only place where God is spoken of, or people are making the sign of the cross. What do you have to say to those folks who are just, they're as green can be. They don't even have a basis to begin. Father, can you hear me? Sorry, Father, I don't know. I hope I didn't lose you here. Let's see. Father, can you hear me? Uh-oh. Well, let's see if we can get him back connected again. As I was sharing a minute ago, I think one of the predominant issues that we have as far as, well, I can only speak for a layperson, but as a layperson who is married, I can probably drum up about 100 different reasons why I'm too busy to do all the things Father Farfaglia was suggesting in our first segment, right? Why we're too busy, we have too much going on to pray morning prayer, evening prayer, and to get a rosary in. It sounds like so much, if you're running and gunning all day long, you also can probably come up with about 1 million reasons. But I think if you take your faith life seriously, if you really desire heaven and you really desire communion with the Most Holy Trinity, it's time, and it may have been time for a long time, but it's time to reevaluate your priorities in life. And if you're terribly busy, you may struggle to get any prayer time at all and together as a single individual or as a family. So, Father, can you hear me, Father? Father Farfaglia? Uh-oh. Let's see if we can do a little bit of radio magic here and get him back on the hub. Father, can you hear me okay? All right. Let's see. Maybe we need to, let's see. Either way, Father Farfaglia is someone that I have admired for quite a long time. As I mentioned earlier, I've got a copy of his book, Get Serious, a survival guide for serious Catholics. And so if you've never thought of yourself as a serious Catholic, or you say that my least favorite phrase in the world, which is, I'm Catholic, but I don't really subscribe to this teaching or that teaching, you definitely need a copy of his book. So you can find it on Amazon. That's Get Serious with an exclamation point, a survival guide for serious Catholics. You can find that on Amazon. And that's by Father James Farfaglia, our guest today. His last name is Farfaglia. Father, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I lost you there for a minute.
Okay, good. I'm glad you're back.
Yeah, now we can get serious.
Exactly. So before our break, you were talking about, we're too busy, right? And so if that's the issue, if you're running into the issue of I simply don't have time because I don't even see my children, or I'm working 15-hour days and I just simply don't have time to pray, or whatever it is, right? We have to. Well, it's better to be poor, and it's better to be bored, and not have your time all filled up, than it is to avoid prayer or to not have a prayer life. Would you agree?
Right. Yes, but also there's also another prevalent problem that affects our spiritual life. And I don't know where this comes from, but this kind of like what some pastors are calling cultural Catholicism, where large numbers of young people, of families, are going to church simply to get a sacrament, usually baptism,
Right.
First Communion, and confirmation, and then there's nothing in between, and everything is about getting something rather than about the relationship. And maybe what we need to do a better job in church life, at least I think this is from what I'm hearing from other pastors around the world as well, even priests in Corpus Christi who have worked in other areas of the world. This is an international problem of cultural Catholicism, of where I'm in church just for the sacrament. And the sacraments are essential, but it's not everything. And but what really is essential is my relationship with God, which is a personal relationship. And the sacraments then are means by which I'm going to, unite myself to God, God to me, me to God, that connection. My prayer life is going to keep that going. It's like the water that's flowing through my soul, or the blood flowing through my soul. And so there's this prevalent attitude among many Catholic Christians that I'm just at church to get something, like as if this was McDonald's. And then they come in for a certificate and then a picture with my first communion, and it becomes something very, very superficial. And then you have these large numbers of families that just leave. And that's not sustainable for the person, and it's not sustainable for the parish either, because you need a certain amount of people to make a community work. And so this is a real problem that is, I don't know. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know what the problem is. And no matter what I do to teach about it, I don't think I'm making any dents. And you could make all sorts of requirements for the religious education program, and everybody will walk through any hoops that you put out there. But then as soon as that child receives first communion, they're gone. And so then, of course, this affects family life, because then people aren't going to church. And then the marriage rates of people getting married sacramentally are down. And so I'm not so sure how to fix this, and even if it is fixable. And maybe what's going to happen is we're going to eventually be smaller communities that are filled with people that are taking the spiritual life seriously and the relationship seriously.
The very serious Catholics that I know are going to keep those numbers high. They have lots and lots and lots of children, and they take their faith very seriously. But I think, I mean, I have so many, I have so much I could say about why I think that is. And I tell you, I've been preparing confirmandi for years now, and I always do an interview as the confirmation is approaching. And I kind of spring it on them, right? I don't warn them. And so we kind of individually, one by one, bring them in and ask, do you want to be confirmed? Do you have a desire to be confirmed? You know, because we're not in the business of confirming people who outright don't want to be confirmed. And they almost always say yes. But then I kind of follow up with, okay, that's great. Why? Why would you like to be confirmed? And these kids are about, 14, 15, 16 years old. And the answer that I get, the majority of the answers that I get, which kind of surprised me, are typically, I need to be confirmed so that I can get married. That's what my grandma told me, right? Which we know isn't true.
Right.
And so they're not even, the reason that they want to be confirmed is not for, they don't even know what the sacrament does, right? And that's what I'm there to, is to teach, part of that. But what I find that I'm doing in confirmation is I'm writing on a big whiteboard saying, what does proto-evangelium look like? What does this look like in Spanish to evangelium? What does that look like? I'm like, we're going like all the way back, right? I mean, because they don't have a clue. They don't know the 10 Commandments. They don't, I mean, I'm having I can't imagine, right, as a pastor, what you've seen and what you've dealt with. But as a layperson who is trying to help, right, and teach and form, I am incredibly discouraged at what the parents will do to get their kids out of class. And it's such a tiny requirement. It's such a small commitment, And it's very, very discouraging for me. And I don't know, like you said, I don't know why. And if I had to guess, if I had to give one good guess, I would say that following our faith is very difficult if you have bought hook, line, and sinker into the culture. And what I mean by that is the sexualization of everything and the obsessive need for social gratification on social media and things like that. I mean, if you're trying to win that over, then being a Christian is really, really, really hard and not worth it, because as you know, you get persecuted a lot, and that doesn't get you very many likes and hearts. We're talking with Father James Farfaglia today, pastor of St. Francis de Paula in San Diego, Texas, talking about the importance of the layperson's spiritual life. We are getting into the nitty-gritty, folks. I'm honored that he's on the show, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a very short break. Thanks for listening.
This is Franciscan Media's Saint of the Day for November 14th. Today we celebrate Saint Gertrude the Great. Born in Saxony around the middle of the 13th century, today's saint is considered one of the 3 greatest female spiritual writers in church history. From an early age, Gertrude lived and was educated at the monastery school at Helfta, and eventually became a Benedictine nun. Along with her friend and teacher, Saint Mechthild, she practiced a spirituality called nuptial mysticism, seeing herself as a bride of Christ. A pioneer in devotion to the Sacred Heart, her spiritual life was a deeply personal union with Jesus that led her into the very life of the Blessed Trinity. As a Benedictine, Gertrude found Christ through living the rhythm of the liturgy. There and in Scripture she found themes and images that both enriched and expressed her piety. The life and revelations of Saint Gertrude, a record of her mystical experiences, has been compared with the writings of Saint Teresa of Avila. Gertrude died in 1302. Though never formally canonized, her feast was extended to the Universal Church in 1738 by Pope Clement XII. There's more about the saints along with inspiration and Catholic resources at our website, saintoftheday.org. From Franciscan Media, this has been Saint of the Day.
This is The Quest from the studios of the Guadalupe Radio Network. Share the show with a friend. You can find us on social media. Want to listen again? We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back. I'm with you every Monday and Thursday here on the Guadalupe Radio Network. I'm your host, Sarah Soto. And as always, you can tune into us and all the other fabulous hosts on The Quest. Steve Gleason on Wednesdays and Monsignor Charles Pope on Tuesdays and Fridays. You can listen on grnonline.com, YouTube, Facebook, anywhere you stream. We are there. Today I have a wonderful guest, Father James Farfaglia, on the show, sharing his many years of experience and insight as a religious, as a priest, a diocesan priest, pastor, on the importance of the layperson's spiritual life, prioritizing prayer, and the importance of developing that relationship with the Lord instead of going to check your sacramental boxes and heading out the door and going down the road to the mega church where they preach I'll say it, a false gospel. I know there's a lot of shiny bright lights and there's fog machines, and I understand that it's visually appealing to many people. But that is not the fountain of grace. That's the one true church, which is the Catholic Church. So, Father, I don't know what the problem is either. I was surprised to hear you say that it's an international problem. I thought that it would be less so. I feel like it's less so in Mexico. But you know what it is about Mexico?
It's a problem there too. Though you have bigger numbers at church, but in terms of I worked in Mexico for 6 years as a religious, and it's there. That's where I kind of discovered this problem, and it's there. So I think. Sorry, I was going to say, I think if we were to put a solution to that problem, then we can finish up on about prayer itself. I think two solutions, but it's a bigger picture. One is, I think, where you have Catholic education in a city or attached to a parish, I think you have a better situation where the Catholic faith becomes an integral part of the student and even the family. So it's not just as coming and going. So I think that's really important, that if we could, as a church, put a lot of importance on Catholic schools on all levels, from pre-K all the way to college, that And that's going to have a huge impact because then it becomes a way of life. I know that's easier said than done, but I went to Catholic school. And so up until seventh grade, then our school closed, but it was reopened years later. But that left a huge impact on my life. And then I went to a Catholic college, which unfortunately closed after 50 years of existence. But for anybody who was there for those years, all benefited tremendously because there was a spiritual life, a Catholic life that was going on, from Sunday to Sunday. So that was extremely helpful. The second thing is maybe that's something, for another topic, but maybe we need to look at how we do the sacraments. Like there's even some movement of where confirmation is being dealt with like the Eastern Church does, where those are the sacraments of initiation, of baptism, confirmation, and Eucharist. Myself personally, I think that's a very good idea pastorally, but
I
that's
agree.
not my but that's not my decision.
Right.
But I'd like to get back to, if I could, just before we end, then
Sure.
the importance of the order and the discipline, being realistic in terms of what families can do, adapt your prayer life to your situation, and then of course you're always got your ideal of what you would like to get to when the situation allows you to do so. But the key to a good spiritual life then is going to be organized and order and discipline. And the thing is, as you know, as a mom, there's always something that could interfere in that, like a child gets sick. You just can't say, well, hold on, I got to pray my rosary. Well, no, that's your prayer, is taking care of your sick child,
Yeah.
right? Or something happens, but that isn't necessarily always like the everyday situation.
Right.
So we got to be organized and have order. The second thing, though, is whenever it's become possible, is that I like to focus on, before we close, on the importance of meditation, which leads us into more of a contemplative prayer. And that could be done in adoration before the Blessed Sacrament, or even in a home setting, or even somebody that's working can do that in their office. Close the door, put a sign on the door, don't bother me, for a half hour. And particularly make good use of the scriptures. It could be the reading of the day, right? The readings of the day, to meditate on those, or just any favorite part of the Bible, to make the Word of God the soul of our spiritual life. And then there's other books that people might, find helpful. Like, over the years since college, I have found The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis, just a chapter a day, and reflect on that and meditate on that. And that's very practical. So our spiritual life needs to be practical. But at the end of the day, our prayer life, what is it? It's being in love with God. It's not just checking something off. It's a friendship with God. Where I speak to God, God speaks to me, and then we have that discipline to where we allow God to pray within us. And heaven is our ultimate goal, to get to it. So in order to grow in our Christian life, then prayer is essential.
Yeah.
And of course, prayer has different forms, but the key is to pray, and not just the asking. The less
Yeah.
books and the less asking, the better, because we already know in the Gospels that Jesus says your heavenly Father already knows what you need. So we don't come to God with this list of things. We can have just general intentions: take care of my family, take care of this, for world peace or whatever, and then just be with God. That's the key. And then with that, that's where the peace comes, that's where the joy comes, and that's where the strength comes in order to endure the difficulties of life. And there are plenty of difficulties, as we all know.
My goodness, you're telling me. There's a so, and correct me if I'm wrong. If what you're saying about the, that a layperson, and this goes for everyone, is universal, but if a prayer life is essential to a relationship with God, or friendship with God, would it be fair to say that if you don't have any sort of prayer life whatsoever, and you're just showing up to mass and then thinking about barbacoa the whole time and then heading out, can you even have a relationship and a friendship with the Lord if you've got no prayer life?
No.
I didn't think so.
No.
And that's a
No.
hard reality and a hard truth to hear for a lot of people, because I think I hear from folks.
Even going to church, I mean, like, how many people, even see it in the Gospels, of different encounters with the Lord. Who, like, what was it with the woman who touched the cloak of Jesus? Who touched me? Well, everybody's bouncing into you, but do I really touch the Lord? So even when I go to Mass on Sunday, am I praying? Am I having an encounter with the Lord? Hopefully we are, by listening to the Word of God and receiving Holy Communion worthily.
Right.
You know.
That's what I was gonna. Maybe I'll close with these thoughts. But that was my experience of Mexico. There sure are a lot of people who remain in the pews and don't receive Holy Communion, as opposed to here, where every single soul gets up and receives. And boy, it would be so great if every single person was always in such a beautiful state of grace. But we have to. I like what you said, that the Lord already knows what we need, and I am a living testament to that. I've never had to pray for humility, because the Lord humbles me every day without my prompting all the time. And so, I'm so, there's a lot to sort of take and sort of chew on from what you've shared today. And I appreciate your time and your insight. And folks, there's a difference. There's a big difference between me sharing my, few years and my, I studied theology in school, but it's like, I have such a short, and, I didn't convert until I was in my mid-20s. My life experience is nothing compared to Father Farfaglia's and what he's done and what he's done for God's people. And so thank you, Father James, for being on the show today.
Sure. Thanks for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Yeah. And so if you want to find out, if you want to look up Father's books, again, it's Father James Farfaglia, Farfaglia. You can find his books on Amazon. Highly, highly recommend. As always, it's been a great joy to be here with you all on The Quest. I'm with you every Monday and Thursday, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for listening. God bless you, and have a great day.